Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. Welcome back to Will It Play, a video series I have not done in a while with a twist. This time we are comparing integrated graphics to a dedicated graphics card, both on the Ryzen 5 2400G CPU. I have done a build on this computer, link in the video description below, and a ton of other benchmarks, a link to that playlist down below. This is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. On the left-hand side, we have the integrated graphics included in the Ryzen 5 2400G, the Vega 11 compute units effectively. On the right-hand side, we have an RX 580 8GB dedicated graphics card. This particular model is an ASRock factory overclocked card, and it is performing beautifully. Now, if you look on the bottom of the screen, you'll notice that the detail settings and the render resolution are not the same. We're almost at the end of the benchmark, so I'm going to repeat it a couple times and then pause it so you get a chance to watch it, because low detail on the integrated graphics at 50% render scale. So this is effectively standard def. It's 540p effectively because it is half the resolution, half of 1080p, because if you try to do this at 1080p, it really does turn into a slideshow. On the right-hand side, on the add-in graphics card, we have high detail with 100% render scale. There are so many interesting things to look at in this benchmark. And if you look at this and go, well, just what's the number, what's the chart, then frankly, I think you've missed a lot of it because, first of all, Assassin's Creed Odyssey doesn't really like this 4-core 8-thread chip very much. Take a look at the third line of MSI Afterburner. Notice that we are way above 50% usage. Now, because this is an 8-thread chip, but only 4 cores, the threads are not cores, mind you. Only cores are cores. The threads basically just let you schedule additional processes and make your machine smoother, but doesn't give it more processing power. When we're over 50% on a hyper-threaded, or since this is AMD SMT, but same thing, notice that we are bottlenecking both graphics chips. The Vega 11, even at this very low detail setting, is bottlenecked by the CPU, and the RX 580 8GB card is also bottlenecked by the CPU. It's running fairly quickly at about 3.7 gigahertz. Either way, these are stock clock speeds. That's the boost speed. It occasionally jumps up to 3.8. But because we are between 60 to 75% usage, we are heavily into the additional threads, which are not cores. Put this on a true 8-core machine, or actually, really frankly, a 6-core machine, a Ryzen 5 1600 or 2600 would smooth this out a bit and provide additional performance. The irony is that's probably the highlight of this entire video, is that point rather than the graphics themselves, and it really does deserve its own coverage because I imagine a lot of people aren't going to watch this based upon the title of the video. Let me know in the comments down below how much you want to see a why 4 cores is no longer enough for AAA gaming in 2019 video. I've covered it, I've talked about it, I've mentioned it, and for all the people who say, but you only need 4 cores for gaming, yeah, you used to. That information's out of date. Now, the graphics chips are both pretty good, but they are in fact being held back. VRAM is different, main system RAM usage is different. These are all to be expected because we are not running at the same detail. We are comparing graphics chips of such complete disproportion in terms of performance that there is effectively no way to set them to the same detail. If I set the RX 580 to low detail at 50% scale, it actually won't run substantially faster because of the CPU. It'll run a bit faster to be sure, but not tremendously so. If I set the integrated graphics to 100% scale, high detail, then it'll be 10 frames a second at best, probably 5 frames per second at points, which is pointless. Nobody's ever going to try to play it that way. So instead, what I did is I found detail settings that provide us with effectively the same performance, even if it's dramatically different quality settings. I'm now going to slow the footage way down here when this tree becomes visible so that you can get a rough idea of just how different low and high detail and 50% scale and 100% scale really is. Now, if you're watching this on a smartphone, a small screen, if you're watching this at 360p on YouTube, then you might not see as much difference than if you're watching it at high quality. But if you turn your quality settings up on YouTube, you're watching on a large enough screen, That should be fairly obvious. The left side and the right side are very different images that look 10 years apart in terms of overall quality. The flame, the people, the legs, the clothes, the texture on the rocks, the texture on the trees, the lines on the building, the detail in the tall tree. They're just two completely different images. Now, a game is a game and it's fun regardless of details, but if you're sitting here wondering, does it really make a difference? Well, see for yourself. Now this is 25% speed, and it just lets you take a look at these two trees closer as we go by them. It'll return to 100% speed here in a second, but you can see right there how clearly the different images really are, the lines on the buildings, and now here we are back at full speed. It's a huge, huge difference. Integrated graphics have come a long, long way, and the Vega 11 integrated graphics will in fact play basically every game on the market if you're willing to turn it down far enough. But an effective resolution of 540p at low detail is pretty far down the scale. Should you really be playing these kind of AAA games on integrated graphics? No. This is what an Xbox or PlayStation is for. If you really are so tight on the budget that this is the best you can do, these games really are pretty bad. But if you can afford an RX 580, which aren't that expensive anymore, then you actually get pretty decent performance. Now here's the chart, which shouldn't surprise you if you've been watching the video up to this point. 39 and 42 frames per second average respectively between the integrated graphics and the RX 580, but again, completely different settings, 24 and 22 on minimum, and 61 and 67 on max. If you want to play current modern AAA games in 2019, I am firmly convinced that it is time to leave 4 cores, 8 threads behind. You can do it, and certainly with higher clock speeds. If this were an i7 7700K at 4.5 gigahertz, it would be running better. Intel has higher IPC, Intel has higher clock speed. This wouldn't be this bad. A 2400G is a lower power chip, but the era of 4 cores, 8 threads is coming to an end. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with the big huge red button directly below. Questions, comments, thoughts, feedback, suggestions, put that down there. Check the links in the video description, link to my playlist on this computer, link to the build video series on this computer, links to buy all of this stuff at Amazon and Newegg are down in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. I will see all of you next time.